I stayed there. I learned a lot. In that
I love that.
4 months, I learned a lot. Yeah.
Right.
hmm
I love that. I love that.
Big
Man, your
lesson though.
story is so inspiring. This is a big blessing. Yes. And you know, let's talk about your accomplishments. Because I want to dive in that a little deeper. Because I know we're talking about the director jump. I know
hmm
eventually you did make it to that VP level.
Yes.
So I want to hear a little bit about that story. How you got to VP, and how were you able to achieve some of that remarkable success? Not just only in that, but in corporate America, and now you being, I'm gonna put it out in you, world renowned coach, business leader. You now, like, just you setting up this business and a professional speaker. That's a big achievement in itself. So tell me about that journey from VP to doing this, and then tell us a little bit about the journey of setting up, being a professional speaker, setting up your business, what, how you set it up, and the accomplishment and the path to doing that.
Well, what's interesting is someone told me, a CEO once told me that you are an entrepreneur that got trapped in the corporate world because your skills were so good at what you did in the corporate world, but you are truly an entrepreneur.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, that's really interesting. But here's what
Uh,
here's something else that happened to me spiritually that aligns with the question that you just asked. 3 times I left the corporate world to start my consulting business and coaching, leadership, development, uh, professional speaking, etc. And every time I got lured back by the
mhm.
title, the money, traveling the world, the material items. And then every time I got lured back, within 30 to 45 days, I'm sitting there like, what did you do now? Right. And so what happened to me this past April, I joined a church, first church I've ever joined in my life.
Mhm.
And gone to a lot of churches, very spiritual, always prayed, but never joined it. And the very first sermon, um, the pastor at Fort Bend Church, shout out to them here in Sugar Land, Texas. The pastor said, don't keep going back to where God called you out of.
Mm.
Yeah.
Woo.
And so he was saying to me, you want to touch millions. You want to help millions. You can't do it in the corporate world because you're only allowed to work with the people in the company. You got to get out there. You got to go out there and do this. And 3 times I kept going back. But when he said that to me, it stuck. And then here's what happens, right? You talk about the devil, you talk about demons, you talk about, the unsavory things. Not even a month after that, do you know I had an executive recruiter call me up and say to me, hey, we got this chief compliance officer position. We think you would be perfect for this company. They're merging with another company. They want to keep their culture the same and you would be phenomenal at it. And I basically said, look, if I can't work with them from a consulting standpoint and keep my business, then I'm not really interested. And then he asked if I would at least talk to them, do an interview with them, because he had done me a favor. He had gotten me a chief operating officer position, with the company in the past. And so I agreed to do it. But that morning in my devotion, I prayed, man. I prayed like crazy. And I asked God, if this is not from you, if this is not of you, remove it. I don't want anything to do with it. And I told my wife the night before, I don't care if they offer me $500,000 a year. I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take it because fulfillment for me now, fulfillment it's not material. It's not money.
Mhm.
Fulfillment is taking your greatest gift at what God has given you and helping other people with it. And then they come back and they thank you for it. That's
Mm.
fulfillment. That's where you get your fulfillment from, man. And
Yes.
so I look at all of the faces and all of the stories that I have in working with people and how they feel about me and how they would do anything for me because of what we built together, right?
Mhm.
That is fulfillment. it wasn't the houses that I built. It wasn't traveling the world. It wasn't the luxury cars that I've driven and owned. Fulfillment came from helping people. And so that's what I want to do now. And so all of the motivation turned towards this is what I want to do. This is the path that I want to go in. And so, walked away from the corporate world and this is where I'm going. This is what I'm doing now. And I'll tell you this, I'll share this with you. I've been trying to get on a TEDx stage to do a TEDx talk. Well, a TED talk, I should say, since 2008. TED has been around since I think about 1984. People may not realize that. And then in 2009 is when they franchised it out to individual franchisees. And that's where the TEDx came into play, 2009. But in 2008, I would do speaking in the corporate world as well. And somebody said to me once, you know what? You ought to do a TED talk. This was 2008. And not only that, she worked in the marketing department. She said, I'm going to nominate you. And she nominated me. And I got rejected. And I had been getting rejected since 2008, man. Even my alma mater rejected me.
What?
Yeah, man. I used to fly down to Nova Southeastern University, where I got my MBA in international business from, and they would pay me.
Southeastern University, shame on y'all. Y'all know what y'all skipped off.
Well, it was God's plan, okay? Because I have to say this. I don't feel like I was ready yet, because a story that I was able to tell in my TEDx talk that I did, by the way, 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I wouldn't have been able to tell that particular story. And so yeah, they were paying me to come down and talk to the graduate students for the international business class, twice a year. And then this was 2015. I applied and got rejected. And that was like one of the most painful. It was like, well, God, you guys are paying me to come down and I still can't get. Now I understand it was a different organizing group and all of that, but it was like, wow. So I've been trying to get on this stage. So this year I actually applied to 43 different locations to do a TEDx talk, either in the US or Canada, this year alone.
Wow. You put in that work.
Put in the work, man. And I ended up getting 2, right? I spoke recently at TEDx Greenhouse here in Houston, Texas. And then I also was selected to speak at TEDx Punta Gorda in Florida. And, because of the hurricane situation they had to postpone that one until the spring of 2025. So I'm on the docket to deliver another one in the spring of 2025. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that whole journey came out of just watching and working in the corporate world and seeing how many leaders just don't know how to treat people, man. And so I've developed a lot of skills. I have a lot of workshops and a lot of training over the years that I've done to enhance whatever company I was working for. So now I've taken all of that and I've put it into my consulting company, Rodney Lawson LLC. And along with that, so I do public speaking, or professional speaking, I should say. I do coaching, workshops, retreats, and I'll do individual coaching as well. Yeah. So those are the things, and that's the journey, that's the path that I'm on now. And, God has been opening up amazing doors ever since that interview. And I just, bombed the interview, right? It was God's way of saying, okay, now I feel like you're ready. And, it wasn't even a week or 2 later that, I'm speaking, I'm getting, nominated to speak on a district HR stage, which is another platform similar to TEDx, but it's kind of different. It's challenging in its own self, because you have only 5 minutes to present 20 slides for your presentation.
Wow.
And those slides auto advance every 15 seconds.
What?
Yes.
That's a whole nother level.
Yeah. So I delivered a district HR speech in Madison, Wisconsin back in September. And I'm on the organizing committee for District HR Houston. We're putting on the event in the spring of 2025. Yeah, I do all the marketing for them.
Man, that's beautiful. Man, your story and testimony is just an inspiration for so many different people in so many ways. There's lessons in there of like just overcoming achievement, staying true to your path, your mission,
Hmm. Hmm.
faith. Everything is wrapped up in there. Um, I want to double back real quick back to the values and lessons piece, because
Okay.
when we're in the green room, you said some very powerful things around, the you mentioned the importance of values in leadership, and
Leadership. Yes.
and the core values that guided you and why they're essential in your work. So I think that you said there was four essential ones. Could you
Yes.
break that down for me again?
Absolutely. I love to. In fact, this is a part of my TED Talk. My TED Talk is all about these four
Man.
essential values. And so essentially what happens is when people get promoted or elected or selected into a leadership position, they're immediately in their mind, they're given influence. They're looking for influence.
Mm-hmm.
They want the influence. That's what they look at and relish and, kind of gravitate towards. The problem, though, is that at any given moment, if you take the title away, Terrell,
Mm.
and there's nothing that influence is sitting on, those people will no longer follow that person. And so
Mm.
what I teach people is that influence has to sit on two foundational pillars, one above the other. So let's say you have influence right here. Right beneath it, you have loyalty. You have to have loyalty in order to have that influence. Because when you take
Mm.
that title or position away, people will still follow them. That's why people still gravitate towards me years later. People that I've worked with 20, 30 years ago, are still gravitating towards me and will talk to me about certain things, look at me as a mentor because we built that loyalty. But that loyalty also sits on a pillar as well. And this is the foundational core. The foundational core are your values. Okay.
Mm.
Now, something about those values, I say that those values, there are four essential ones that you have to show and display if you want to get that level of loyalty, that level of influence. And it's love,
Mm.
trust, honesty, and respect.
Mm.
And these things were discovered in kind of a unique way. It was, and I talk about this in my TEDx talk too. It was 1984. I was working with five supervisors at a location as their manager.
Yeah.
And one of the supervisors, his people absolutely despised the ground he walked on. They could not
Wow.
stand this guy. Now,
Mm-hmm.
they all kept their performance above plan because they wanted to keep their job, right? And so in his eyes, because he was always slightly above plan, he thought everything was okay. He was doing okay. And so I said to him one day, I said, I bet if I did an assessment and compare how much your people care about you versus your peers and their people, you would rank at the bottom. He did not believe me. He was one of those individuals that, you would tell him something, he'd nod his head yes, but he gonna go and do what he wanted to do anyway. Very
Mm-hmm.
rarely listening. And at the time, I was a young manager. He was probably 5, 6 years older than me. Not that that's anything, that I look at. But, at the same time, I'm coaching him on this and he didn't want to see it. And so we decided to take on this experiment. And so I
Mm-hmm.
decided that we were going to evaluate each of the supervisors in those four areas: love, trust, honesty, and respect. And then I also put a caveat in there. Any rating outside of mediocre for any one of those four, they had to provide a specific example. And this is just to validate the point, right? Man, when I got those results back, whew, uh, of course, he was way at the bottom, right? But
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that they said were so hard for me to sit there and listen to, you know.
Mm.
And to this day, I can still tell you, one of the stories was one of the individuals was trying to change the location of where he was picking the medication up for his wife on his way home from work. And his supervisor, this guy, went off on him, cursed him out, told him to hang up the phone, and he had to hang up on the pharmacy while he was in the middle of trying to get the medication changed. Who wants to work with somebody like that, man? So anyway, once these things were discovered, the love, trust, honesty, and respect, I started teaching them every chance I got. Every leadership position I went into, I would walk people through this experiment and this experience where I would take them through, and I had this in one of my workshops where I would say, what do you think your employees are motivated by? And they would say, usually money is always number one. Money, and then they would say like incentives or time off or things of that nature. And I would write it down on a dry erase board. And then I would say, okay, I can think of something that's way more powerful than everything that you guys stated. And I can prove it to you. And of course, they would say, well, what's that? I said, okay, well, follow along with me. And I would ask them to close their eyes, right? And then I would say, I want you to think about the person that means the most to you in your life. This person has touched you in a way that no one has ever touched you before. This person could be a parent, a spouse, teacher, minister, coach, or anyone else, even your child. But the key factor here is that they touched you in a way that no one has ever touched you before, and they're probably instrumental in you being the person that you are today. Can you see them with your eyes closed? Can you see them? And then I would say, okay, open your eyes. And I would say, okay, show of hands. How many of you have some in mind? And everybody will raise their hand because everybody will have someone in mind. So now, let me ask you a question. And I will walk over to the dry erase board. Do you feel this way about this person because they gave you money? Nope. Do you feel this way about this person because they gave you incentives or time off? Nope. And I would basically say you feel this way about them for 4 essential value reasons: love, trust, honesty, and respect. And let me share with you how, and then I go into, like in my workshops, I go into how to manage each and every one of those individual things. And I'll give you a quick example on trust, right? I'm just going to pull that one out. Trust is nothing more than an assessment for every situation. It's an assessment, right? You and I on this podcast, speaking with one another, we're assessing how much we trust one another. And some of that came off of the conversation that we had in the green room, right? We're assessing. Every situation is an assessment. Now, that assessment is going to be predicated off of 3 things: sincerity, knowledge of the situation, and reliability. And it's in that order, right? Now, this works with relationships. This works with relationships. And I say relationships, I'm talking about significant others. I'm talking about parent-child. I'm talking about coworkers, colleagues. It's an assessment, and it's those 3 things: sincerity, knowledge of the situation, and reliability. Okay. Now let's just look at this for a setting just between you and I on this podcast, right? Let me push this a little further. What if I wasn't reliable? What if I didn't show up on time? What if you weren't reliable? What if you didn't send me the link to log into the podcast? Okay. That's reliability.
Start to lose stress.
Right. Now, from a knowledge standpoint, what if this was your first podcast and you did not know how to work the technology, and we're fiddling around for a whole hour, right? See how I can lose trust now because the knowledge isn't there, right?
Might lose a little respect too.
Right. Absolutely. And then what if I felt like during our conversation, you said one thing in the green room, but then you turn around and you say something totally different on the call. Well, we're not going to talk about this, but then you bring it up. Because we all know that there have been interviews out there where people have said, well, now, I mean, for me, I'm like, you can talk to me about anything. I'll discuss anything. I'm an open book, totally transparent. I believe in that. But some people, it's like, okay, we're going to stay away from this. Okay. But then they get into the live interview and they bring it up. Where's the trust in that? You see what I'm saying? So it's those 4 things. And that's just one example of how I work with people in the area of trust. And I'll give you a more something that actually happened. I was having a
Mm.
conversation with a minister of a church, and he
Yeah.
had to go through some situations where he had to, hold an individual accountable, right, up to, terminating that person because they weren't performing well. And the message that he was going to send out was this person moved on and decided to pursue other opportunities, which is a canned statement that they give you in the corporate world. Now, I'll tell you this. Every time I've heard that statement, it made me not
We can
trust
all read
who
through
put it
that.
out.
We know.
Absolutely.
We can read through that. We know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I said to him, I said, listen, I said, you don't want to say that. I said, because you're violating the elements of trust. It's not sincere. I said, if there are people that know this guy and know that he's not wanting to pursue something else, then guess what? They're going to look at you kind of side eye, like, okay. And that's not
Yeah.
what you want, right? And I said, you don't have to disclose the personal information, but just say such and such is no longer with us, right? It's as simple as that. Just say such and such is no longer with us. You don't have to go and say they decided to pursue it, and I'm telling you, I can't tell you the number of times, you see that message go out. Such and such has decided to pursue other opportunities. They're no longer with the company, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So that's just the one part, trust, right? But there's a whole section on love. There's a whole section on honesty. There's a whole section on respect. Those four essential values are extremely powerful. And that's why, when I got the opportunity to talk and deliver my TEDx, its foundational pillars are set in that setting, right? And then
Yeah.
I cap it off with an incredible story of how those four essential values, they don't just give you a connection between the people and having them really wanting to work for you, building loyalty and all of that, but you can also receive the ultimate fulfillment from it.
Mm.
And I
Love
won't
that.
go into that, but for time's sake, I won't go into the story. You'll have to catch the TEDx talk. It's not out yet. They say it takes about 2 to 3 months before
Gotta
they
catch the
edit.
TEDx talks, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, yes, yes.
And if you can't catch the TEDx talks, invite him out to your organization to come give you a personal TEDx talk.
Love it. Hey, that's what I do now.
But
That's what I do.
I
So,
know, man, Rodney. This has been incredibly enlightening. I love the conversation. I just love your energy. I love your passion. Your journey
appreciate
and
that.
insights are truly inspiring. Um, let's end off like this. Where can our listeners, follow you, learn more about you, about your work, about your organization, and what's coming up next?
I'm gonna make it real easy for you. If you text the
Mhm.
word magnet, MAGNET, to 55444, you'll be a part of my network. I'll respond to you, and you'll get updates on what's going on with me. Everything. I talk about personal stuff. I talk about professional stuff that's going on, but that'll pull you into my network. Again, it's just
Mm,
text the word magnet to 55444. Simple as that. Okay. And
mm,
the reason it's the word magnet is because someone once told me that, hey, you're like a magnet, man. People gravitate towards you. You're like a magnetic
mm.
leader. And so now, I call myself the magnetic leader.
Yeah, he is a magnetic leader. Then I'm gonna have to, if you didn't catch early in the episode when he said layaway, that he's showing his age right now. So when those of y'all get the video podcast, y'all gonna be shocked as me. I don't know what his skincare routine is, but I need to get that. Because my man did not look like he from the layaway era days. For the younger folks who are listening, layaway is back in the day. There used to be a system where you could pay, and the store would keep it. You just make payments on it
Until you can get it. Yeah. Until you had
until you
enough.
can get it. Yeah, so for all those, I don't know which generation is. What's the generation that's younger than us that probably won't know? Millennials, Gen. The
Gen
Alpha
Y. This
Gen,
is
Gen
Gen Y now, Gen
Y.
X, Gen Y. Yeah.
Yeah, they probably, when they heard that part, they probably was like, layaway, what is that?
Yeah.
Is
What
that a
is
new app?
that?
That's a new app. Let me get this. Hey, y'all know that new Leadway app. But no, man, I appreciate you. We will definitely text that. Give them the numbers again. What they should text?
Text the word magnet, MAGNET, magnet to 55444.
Hey, and
55444.
if you didn't get that information, don't worry. I'm gonna get his website and info. I'm gonna put it in the show notes at the bottom. When you click on the link in the show notes, there you get Rodney. We appreciate you. Thank you, Rodney, for sharing your story, your advice with us. For our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to Rise Urban Nation. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, share it with your network. Stay tuned for our next episode. And I don't know what I'm gonna do with Rodney, but we're gonna do something together because he's like a magnet.
I appreciate
We
that,
just
man.
attract things.
I would love to do that. Yes, I would love to do more.
Thank you. All right. And that's it for our today's show. Peace, love, and blessings. Good night.
Night.